Hey guys, a lot of news going on today, but I wanted to talk to you about one thing that I found that I think is kind of interesting. There's been a lot of talk about you type in something into the search engines and you'll find press releases or news releases describing how the economy is recovering, and unemployment's down and home sales are going up, etc. And then the next link will be to a video or a press release about potential economic collapse. And all this is very confusing. There is one channel that I get a lot of good information from when I'm looking at the economy, and it's Greg Manarino. I'll try to remember to put the link to his channel in the comment section. But I'm also going to be putting a link to something that I found yesterday, and I spent a couple hours reading it, and I've been looking through it again today, and it's very hard to decipher. But what it is where the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, every time you go to your bank, not every time, but you go to a bank, you go through the drive-thru, there's a sticker on the window and it says FDIC insured up to like 10,000 or 100,000, whatever it is. And basically what that is a federal insurance plan where if you're a depositor at this bank, then if something would be to happen to the bank, all of your money up to that point would be insured and you'd get it back. If you got more money than that in there, well then tough shit. But the FDIC and the Bank of England, before I go any further with that sentence, grasp what I just said. The FDIC here in the U.S. and the Bank of England did a joint paper that was published on December the 10th of 2012. So, 4 months ago. It's called Resolving Globally Active, Systemically Important Financial Institutions. And what they're talking about is banks that are too big to fail. Basically, as I have read through this, and as I have talked to some other people, what I am deciphering is that what happened in Cypress is an event from this paper. And when you go through the paper, there's links to other papers, and it's basically where, do you remember several months back, probably 6 months ago or a year ago, who knows, I can't remember now, but the government said they wanted all banks to have a contingency plan in place because they didn't want something happening like what happened when the crash occurred back in 08, 09. So this is kind of coming from all that, I believe. And what it is a plan for systemically important big banks, JP Morgan, Citibank, Bank of America, how to save them. And what's interesting is, the term bailout. Throughout this paper, there's talk about bailouts being a bad thing, which we all know. Hey, Occupy Wall Street, whether you liked them or not, that's what they were there for. They were there because they were angry that the banks were bailed out with taxpayer money because they failed. This suggests a bail-in, which is what happened in Cypress. A bail-in being not taking from the taxpayer, but taking from your own resources. Your own resources can be people with mortgage, people who have stock, shareholders, debtors, creditors, everything that's involved in a bank. So it's almost with the mentality of I deposit my money with you, so I'm investing in you. And therefore, if I take a loss, well, that's my risk for banking with you. Now, you and I all know that in order to pay a mortgage bill, heck, even in order to pay an electric bill nowadays, you have to have a bank account. Okay? I'm not the type of person to get on the New York Stock Exchange market and invest money there. I don't understand it enough. I know it's a risk. I know it's all going to crash. I know it's all fake. So I stay away from it. But a bank, yeah, I have to put money into a bank. What this does is it takes care of the major banks. It says to the major bank, oh, you're systemically important because you're a global financial institution. So since you're failing, set up this other entity over here. Move your assets to it. Now this entity that was there can crumble and fall. While the FDIC, or the Bank of England, depending on what country you're in, appoints a CEO and so forth for the new entity you created. And the new entity, you know, the payoffs, the payments, the getting out of the debts and all of that a bankruptcy judge would require, you take from within. And you restructure the company bank into several smaller ones. It's almost like that offshore company scam that a lot of scam companies that set up real quick do, where they'll set up an offshore company so that they can hide their assets. Now maybe I'm reading something wrong, and I'm not an attorney. This seems to be pretty layman's term. After you read it a few times, you have to learn the terminologies that they're using. There's certain things, like they talk all the time about key assets. Well, what is a key asset? You know, until you can figure out what a key asset is, you can't understand a lot of this paper. But anyway, so it's a formula of suggestions to the banks how to do this. And then of course it does make mention of the fact that there's certain regulations in certain areas that, you know, need to be modified, laws and so forth. It talks about all the banks, the big banks should have this plan instituted and underway during 2013. It doesn't say if a few years down the road it looks rough or anything like that. It's saying get this plan in order, work out your little issues. They talk about doing a global, management crisis group or crisis management group for each of these big banks. What about the small banks? You know, there's step number one, and here's part of what I'm gathering from some of the things that I'm seeing. When everything happened in '08, due to the credit of Occupy Wall Street, a lot of people started to understand what was actually happening with the banks that they had their money in. A lot of people, a big chunk of people, pulled their money out of those big banks and put them into local credit unions, local small farmers and merchants types banks, regional or local. And so these big corporation banks, even though they still have the monopoly on the money coming in, they don't have what they had back then because of their screw up. The only way they can get that back is if the smaller banks are then left to fail. Now, I can get into a huge conspiracy theory here, and I'm going to. If I get one person that puts a comment down below saying that, you know, oh, Alex Jones came up with this and it's all Alex Jones and he's with the Illuminati or something, I'm just going to block you, okay? Because this is not an Alex Jones video, alright? I just get so damn tired of everybody doing that to me. Here's my conspiracy theory. Most of us that are awake are aware of the fact that the banks own the world right now. That the banks started this way back when, and I'm talking the Federal Reserve as well. I'm talking the big banksters own our butts, okay? Now the big banksters have lost some of our butts to the little guys on the street, the new kids on the block. So what do they have to do to get that back, to remain the big players, to remain in control of the world economy, etc.? They got to crash and burn it. And they've got to be the guys who are the big Superman heroes of the day by, oh, we held together and we stayed intact and we just restructured, but we're still up and running. And that little bank, those little guys that you were with, they're faltered, they're down on the ground, there was no insured money there, you lost everything you had with them, come back home. then they have regained the power. In order to do that, they've got to create the crisis. Now, part of the reason why I say that I feel like that's part of what's going to happen here, after reading this monster of a paper, it's not that it was all that terribly long, it was just confusing the first few times through. I was contacted by somebody that I met at the gun show that we went to a month or two ago, and his name is Bob, and he's with the LaRouche group. Now, I don't know a whole lot about them, but I did look through some of his material at the time, standing there at the gun show, and I spoke to him, and he talked to me about the banksters and glass-steagall and just, you know, a number of things. And then he started talking about things that I did know about. He started talking about genocide. He started talking about the chemicals in our foods, the chemicals in the skies, everything that they're doing to get control back of the game. And this attempt by this group, this lobbyist group, to have the powers that be institute H.R. 129, I believe it is, which is a bill that would take our banking system back to pre-1929 era when J.P. Morgan, there was an issue. I don't know enough about it to sit here and ramble on about it to you. But anyway, we talked a lot about things that some things I did know, some things I did not know, and some things that I did not know made sense and connected with some of the things that I did know after listening to some of his, you know, facts and factoids and looking at some of the things that he had. Now, I'm not promoting or supporting LaRouche. Like I said, I still don't know enough to make a educated decision on that group as a whole. All I can talk about is what this particular person and I spoke with. Well, he called me up recently, and he said, you know, I've got something I want to send to you. He said, I want you to look over it. He said, here's what we feel is going to happen. He said, if we don't get this bill introduced, voted on, and enacted in the next 2 to 3 weeks, then we feel the U.S. economy is going to crash and burn and follow the suit of Cypress's example, because the template has already been put in place. And this is the template: resolving globally active, systemically important financial institutions, written by the FDIC and the Bank of England. Now, am I going to sit here and try to tell you we've got 2 or 3 weeks? I don't know. I have no idea. I do know this, that if they know it's happening, they're not going to tell us ahead of time, because they don't want anybody to change a thing they're doing. They want you to make that deposit on Friday. They want you to make that one more mortgage payment on the first. You know, they don't want you to go running and take all your money out. So when it happens, whether it's 2 weeks from now or 2 years or 2 decades, it's going to be like that. It's going to be it's going to be like, what was that Black Monday crash that we had a decade or so ago? It's going to be one day. And the stock markets are something that the common people out here, the everyday people, don't really pay a lot of attention to. It's never really affected me that much if Apple stocks rose 20% one day. It's not really ever been a big factor to me if some electrical company had their stocks crash and burn one day. That doesn't affect me in my everyday world, unless it's a long-term thing. If it goes long-term and it has to do with oil, gold, silver, grains, things of that nature, yes, it does affect us, but it's a trickle down, and it's a at the grocery store over a period of a month or two. Because of the main average of what's happened on the stock market, you may notice an increase of, you know, 0.01% of all the foods that have corn in them, for example. Or you may notice all petroleum-based products drop 0.01%. Not unless you're a stickler like I am at the store. I know my store prices. Like, I watch it every time I go in the store, even if I'm not grocery shopping. you know, maybe I just ran in the store to pick up some bubbles for my grandson. I'm still looking, what are the price tags saying? You know, I know where my food prices are at and my resource prices. But long term, it affects us. Now, if the stock market completely up and freaking crashed, what would happen? Interest rates could go up on your mortgage payments, your credit card payments. Gas prices could skyrocket. The food will trickle down as the gas prices trickle to the semi-truck drivers, the driver delivery guys, as it goes through to the plastic container maker, who now has to spend more money to buy the crude to then make their petroleum-based product to sell to the lettuce farmer who wants to use that to put his lettuce in, to package it up, to put it to the stores. It takes a little while. So when this person said to me 2 to 3 weeks it could crash and burn, and we're pretty positive it's going to, it's part of the plan, if that holds true, if this person is 100% correct, and this starts in 2 weeks, okay, let's say it's April 2nd right now, so April 15th, I'm going to write a note down. We're going to watch the stock market around the 15th. If it happens then, it's going to take a few weeks to a few months for us to feel it. And we're going to know which areas to be watching for our pricing in. Now, if it crashes hard enough, could there be an emergency situation put into play? I think so. But I think this is an even bigger picture. I think, again, back to my conspiracy theory, I think that the idea is we have to go into financial ruin to be able to rebuild and come back up. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, okay? No matter who's in charge, we are screwed, and somebody is going to have to do something if they want to continue to make money. So let's just pretend that they have our best interest at heart, because they understand it's in their best interest. So they decide the only way out of this mess, the only way out of our debt, the only way out of everything is just like a company does when it files Chapter 11 or Chapter 7, you know, restructuring, whichever one they want to do. Companies will file bankruptcy so that they can restructure, have time to breathe, and then a lot of times it does require them breaking into various companies. What I'm seeing from this paper and what I'm hearing is that the banking industry is considering the same exact movement. But if they do that, civil unrest could occur, yada, yada, yada. Well, let's get North Korea and Iran involved, and let's start paying attention to their rhetoric when we've been ignoring them for the past couple decades, and let's instigate it a little bit. If we can stir up a war, a major world war, just like every other time in the past, in some weird way it helps the economy and it helps the morale. Even if the economy doesn't pick up, people pull in together a little bit. So it's almost mandatory that we do have a major war right now. We don't have much else going on to talk about outside of our borders. Right now the topics of conversation are primarily the economy and gay marriage sitting in front of the Supreme Court, or the gun rights. They don't want us talking about the gun bills. They don't want us talking about the economy. They don't want us talking about how bad the president is doing, how much money he's spending on vacations while we're sitting out here going, hello, really? So there's distractions that have to be created. If they can create this world war, then while the economy is imploding and failing, most people in the general public will put the two together and say the economy fell because of this war that we're now in, and we all have to stick together, and, you know, that is, to me, a pretty good plan. We've got to restructure the financial system. Nobody's going to willingly do it. We're going to have to yank it out from underneath of them. But we can't have them thinking that we did it this way, so let's do it that way. Sorry this got kind of long, but I'm still looking through some of this, and I'm gonna give more thoughts on it as they come up and I get further into my research. I'm going to put the link to this paper below so that you can check it out. And if you read it differently than me, please let me know. And give me your thoughts. Do a video response if you want. I'd prefer that, actually, because sitting there reading through all those comments, and sometimes, you only get notification of the most recent comment, and you lose some of the communication there. So please comment, but if you really feel like you have a better explanation of this paper and the links that it links to, I implore you to please let me know, because my brain is going so far down the rabbit hole on this that I need to go make another grocery run. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, what all do I need to do with my last little bit of money before the next 2-3 weeks is up? So anyway, there's a lot of other news on the front. I'm going to try to cover some of that, but I really wanted to get this out, give any of you all that have time the link to this so you can sit and look at it with me and let me know your thoughts on it. And don't give me your thoughts after you've read it one time. Please go back and read it 2, 3, and 4 times until you really feel comfortable that you understand what it says. Alright, guys. Peace out.